There is a small thing your chest does when someone is telling you something hard, and whether you notice it or not is the difference between actually being with them and disappearing into them. It happens in most conversations. Someone you care about is unloading. Maybe they are frustrated, maybe they are hurt, maybe they are just going over the same problem for the third time that week. And somewhere in the first 30 seconds of listening, your chest makes a choice. It either goes quiet and empty, a kind of hollow withdrawal, present in body but absent somewhere behind the eyes, or it gets pulled forward, dragged into their story until their frustration is sitting in your sternum like it is yours. Most people oscillate between these two states without ever naming them. The oscillation is so fast, so automatic, that it passes as listening. Notice right now where your chest is, not metaphorically, literally. Bring your attention to the center of your sternum. Is there warmth there or emptiness? Is the feeling yours, or is it borrowed from whoever was last talking to you? Stay with that for a moment. Don't rush past it, because what I'm about to show you changes what good listening actually looks like, and it starts with that small location. The reframe. You have probably been taught, not explicitly, but by every piece of cultural signal you have ever absorbed, that good listening means feeling what the other person feels. You see someone cry and you tear up. You hear someone's frustration and you feel the tightness in your own gut. You walk away from hard conversations feeling hollow and wrung out, and you interpret that as evidence that you were present, that you cared, that you did it right. But here is what the evidence actually shows. Dr. Tanya Singer's research at the Max Planck Institute reveals something counterintuitive. Feeling with someone, what researchers call empathy, activates pain networks in your brain. Feeling for someone, compassion, activates reward networks. Two different neural events, two different physiological experiences, and they feel from the inside almost identical, which is exactly why the conflation has survived this long. Whether observation of distress in others leads to empathic concern and altruistic motivation, or to personal distress and self-centered emotions, depends upon our capacity for self-other differentiation. When the self-other distinction becomes blurred and we take on the emotional pain of the other person as our own pain, empathetic distress results. This is not a failure of care. It is a failure of location. The caring is there. What is missing is the knowledge of where you are standing while you care. There is a third state between cold detachment and emotional fusion, and most people who pride themselves on being good listeners have never found it. Not because they aren't trying, because no one told them what it feels like in the body, and no one gave them a way to locate it in real time. Here's what shifts when you see this. The goal of listening is not to feel what they feel. The goal is to feel what you feel: warmth, care, attention, while staying fully present with what they feel. That is not a compromise between connection and distance. It is a different thing entirely, and it lives in a specific place in your chest. Chapter 1. The Recognition. What the two failure modes feel like from the inside. Before you can find the third state, you have to be able to recognize the two you're probably already in. The first is what I'll call the cold wall. You've been in this. Someone is talking, and you can feel that you've pulled back somewhere behind your own face. The words are arriving. You are nodding at the right intervals, but there is no warmth in your chest, just a kind of hollow quiet, like an empty room you're listening from. You are watching the conversation from a safe distance, not checked out exactly, more like glassed in. The cold wall feels like competence from the inside, like you are keeping it together, like you are not getting swept away. People who are trained to handle difficult conversations, therapists, doctors, managers who've been through leadership programs often mistake the cold wall for professional composure. It is not, it is withdrawal, and the person you are listening to can feel the absence, even if they can't name it. Something in them registers that there is no warmth on the other side of their words, and they either push harder to get a response or they begin to close down. The second failure mode is what I'll call the fused chest. This is the one that gets praised. The fused chest is when your sternum has been dragged forward into their experience. Their frustration is your frustration. Their anxiety is creating tightness in your own body. Their sadness is sitting somewhere behind your eyes. You are not with them, you are in them. The boundary between their experience and yours has dissolved, and you are now managing two people's emotional states with one nervous system. Empathic distress is the strong, aversive, and self oriented response to the suffering of others, accompanied by the desire to withdraw from a situation in order to protect oneself from excessive negative feelings. Notice that it becomes self oriented. When you fuse with someone's pain, the thing you are most aware of is your own discomfort. You want the conversation to end. You want to fix them, not because fixing them is what they need, but because fixing them will relieve the pressure in your own chest. You start offering solutions they didn't ask for. You start subtly steering the conversation away from what is actually happening. You start doing what looks like caring, but is actually self-regulation. The fused chest also feels like love from the inside, like you are really in it with them, like you care so much it hurts. And sometimes the person on the other end can feel that warmth, but they can also feel underneath it the pull of your discomfort, the sense that your care has a tipping point, and beyond that tipping point, they become a burden. Neither of these states is presence. Neither is what the person across from you actually needs. Emotional contagion and empathy share similar characteristics, with the exception of the ability to differentiate between personal and pre-personal experiences, a process known as individuation. In The Art of Loving, 1956, social psychologist Erich Fromm explores these differences, suggesting that autonomy is necessary for empathy, which is not found in emotional contagion. Read that again slowly. Autonomy is necessary for empathy, not detachment. Autonomy, the ability to remain distinct while staying present, the ability to be moved without being swept away, the ability to keep your location even while attending fully to theirs. In the human literature, emotional contagion was originally defined by Hatfield and colleagues in 1994 as the tendency to automatically mimic and synchronize facial expressions, vocalizations, postures, and movements with those of another person's and, consequently, to converge emotionally. The key word there is automatically. The convergence happens without you deciding. Your nervous system is running a pattern faster than thought, mimicking, synchronizing, converging. That is not a character flaw. That is a biological mechanism you inherited from a species that survived by reading each other's states at high speed. But you are not trying to survive a threat right now. You are trying to be present for someone you care about. And that requires catching the automatic pattern mid-loop, noticing when the convergence has started, and making a different choice before it completes. That choice is not cold. That choice is warm precision. Chapter 2. The Mechanism. What is actually happening when you fuse or withdraw? Here is what is happening in your body when this occurs. The amygdala is one part of the brain that underlies empathy and allows for emotional attunement and creates the pathway for emotional contagion. The basal areas, including the brainstem, form a tight loop of biological connectedness, recreating in one person the physiological state of the other. Recreating, not approximating, not sensing, recreating. When the person next to you is distressed, your brain stem is beginning to produce a version of that distress in your own body. This happens in milliseconds, before cognition, before you have decided anything. The question is not whether this happens. It does. The question is what you do in the 300 to 500 milliseconds after it starts, before it becomes your full physiological state. Dr. Tanya Singer's pioneering neuroscience research used fMRI brain scanning to examine what happens when people experience empathy versus compassion. When participants experienced empathy, especially for others' pain, their brain's pain networks became active. This empathic response led to feelings of being overwhelmed and depleted, an experience often mislabeled as compassion fatigue in healthcare settings. The mislabeling matters because if you call it compassion fatigue, you conclude that caring itself is the problem and the solution is to care less. But caring is not the problem. In contrast to empathy, compassion is characterized by feelings of warmth, concern, and care for the other, as well as a strong motivation to improve the other's well-being. Warmth, concern, care. Those are not cold words. Compassion is not detachment dressed up in philosophical language. It is something else. It is the state in which your warmth stays in your own chest, while your attention stays with the other person. The warmth belongs to you. The attention moves. Now, here is the part that connects to the body in a way that neuroscience has only recently started to map. A link between empathy and interoceptive awareness can be predicted on the basis of both affect sharing and self-other distinction, where interoceptive awareness is defined as the extent to which internal bodily cues reach awareness and influence behavior, feelings, and cognition. Interoception, defined as afferent information arising from within the body, is the basis of all emotional experience and underpins the self. However, people vary in the extent to which interoceptive signals reach awareness. This trait modulates both their experience of emotion and their ability to distinguish self from other in multisensory contexts. Read that last sentence again. The ability to distinguish self from other is modulated by your awareness of your own internal bodily signals. This is not a metaphor. This is physiology. When you lose track of what is happening in your own body, when your interoceptive signal drops below the threshold of conscious awareness, you become more vulnerable to the automatic convergence. You don't know where you are, so you end up wherever the other person is. Your location dissolves into theirs. Conversely, when you bring attention to what is happening in your own chest, when you can locate the sensation of warmth or emptiness or the forward pull of the sternum, you are rebuilding the foundation of self-other distinction in real time, not by pulling away, by getting more specific about where you are. The insula, a primary interoceptive brain region, is activated during the subjective awareness of feelings, including empathy, suggesting that learned associations between interoceptive signals and emotions observed in others may contribute to empathy. The insula, the same region that processes your internal bodily state, is active during empathy. These are not separate systems. Feeling yourself and feeling with another person are running through overlapping neural architecture. This means that attending to your own body is not a retreat from the other person. It is the neurological ground for sustainable connection. The chest is not a metaphor here. When you breathe warmth into your own sternum while keeping your attention on someone else's words, you are doing something physiologically specific. You are activating the interoceptive pathway that grounds your sense of self. You are maintaining the boundary that makes genuine presence, rather than fusion, possible. Notice what that means. The practice of staying in your own body is the practice of being a better witness, not a colder one, a more stable one. The personal anecdote. The car ride. Darius is complaining about a date. We are in his car, he is driving, and he is going through the whole thing. What she said, what he said back, where it went wrong. I notice I have gone cold. There is no warmth in my chest. I am hearing the words, but I am not with him. I have pulled back somewhere behind my own face, and I am watching from a safe, empty place. It does not feel cold from the inside. It feels like composure, like I am holding steady, but there is nothing in my sternum, just a hollow quiet while his frustration plays out in the seat to my left. Then it swings. I feel my chest being dragged forward into his story, into the heat of his disappointment. The boundary starts dissolving. I am not just hearing him anymore. His frustration is creating a kind of tightness in my own sternum, like his emotion is pulling on something in me. His disappointment is becoming my disappointment. I can feel the pull in the center of my chest. My attention has left my own body and is somewhere in the middle of his seat, inside his experience. I catch it mid-swing. I notice the pattern, cold detachment on one side, forward pulling fusion on the other, and I notice that I have been oscillating between them for the entire conversation without naming it. The oscillation felt like listening. It was not listening. It was two failure modes in rapid alternation, wearing the costume of presence. I try something. I breathe into my own chest, not into his story, not toward him, into my own sternum. I keep my attention located in my own body while I stay present with what he is saying. I am not pulling away. I have not retreated behind the glass wall, but I am also not dragged forward into his frustration. I am just here, warm and precise. My chest has warmth in it that belongs to me. My attention is on his words. These two things are happening at the same time, without conflict. What I am feeling in his direction is not his frustration. It is something more like care. I am aware that he is frustrated. I can feel the weight of that awareness, but the frustration itself is his. It is sitting in his body, not mine. And because it is not sitting in my body, I can stay with him without needing the conversation to end. I do not need to fix it so the pressure in my own chest will release, because there is no accumulated pressure. There is just warmth and attention and his words arriving fully. He talks for another 10 minutes. I do not offer solutions. I ask one question near the end that opens something for him. He lands on something he needed to say that he had not quite gotten to yet. And when we park the car, he says he feels better. Not because the situation changed, because he was actually heard. I could not have done that from inside his frustration. I could only do it from my own chest. The Aristotelian mean, not the midpoint between cold and fused, not the compromise that lives equidistant between two extremes. Virtue lies not in the exact middle, but at the so-called golden mean, which will sometimes be closer to one extreme than the other. Something that has its own character, its own quality, that is not reducible to either of the things flanking it. Warm precision, present and located, attending and intact. I found it by noticing what my chest was doing. Practical exercise 1. The chest location check. Practical exercise, the chest location check. For the next 7 days, try this. Pick one conversation per day. It can be short, it can be with anyone, it doesn't need to be emotionally loaded. Before the conversation starts, take 3 seconds to notice the sensation in your own sternum, not metaphorically. Place your awareness there. Is there warmth, emptiness, a kind of tension? Just notice and name it silently to yourself. Warm, empty, or tight. Then, twice during the conversation, once near the beginning and once near the middle, check again. Same question, same sternum. Warm, empty, or tight. If you find you have gone empty, you are in the cold wall. If you find that the feeling in your chest has taken on the texture of the other person's emotional state, Their anxiety is your anxiety. Their frustration is your frustration. You have fused. If you find warmth that is yours, distinct from their state but present while they speak, you have found the third location. You will not always find the third location. That is not the point. The point is that you learn to notice in real time which of the three you are in, because you cannot navigate to a place you cannot locate. The check itself, the 2-second act of bringing attention to your own sternum mid conversation, is the beginning of the practice. What you will discover if you actually do this: most people oscillate between cold wall and fused chest dozens of times in a single conversation, and they have no idea because the oscillation is happening below conscious attention. This exercise does not fix the oscillation, it makes it visible. And the moment it becomes visible, you have a choice you didn't have before. Chapter 3. What shifts in daily experience? When you begin to catch the pattern mid-loop, specific things change in specific contexts, not all at once, not dramatically, but verifiably in ways you can notice the same day. In conversations where someone is unloading, when you are fused, the thing you are managing is your own discomfort. This produces a very specific listening behavior. You start offering solutions before they are asked for because the solution would relieve the pressure in your chest. You start watching for the sign that the person is feeling better because their relief is the only thing that will release yours. You steer the conversation subtly toward resolution, not because resolution is what they need, but because resolution is what you need. When you are in warm precision, none of that pressure exists. Your warmth is in your own chest, not borrowed from their eventual recovery, so you can stay with them in the unresolved place. You can let them circle back to the same thing 3 times without needing it to land somewhere final. Your attention is fully on them. Your nervous system is not in emergency management mode. The result, and this is something you will be able to verify the first time you do it, is that the other person goes further. They get to the thing underneath the thing they were saying, not because you pushed them there, but because there was no urgency on your side that they needed to manage. They could feel that your presence was stable, and a stable witness allows someone to go deeper than a fused one. In conversations where someone is angry, when you are fused, someone else's anger creates a counter response in your own body. Either you go cold to manage it, or you escalate because their anger has become yours. Neither produces the thing that actually needs to happen in a difficult conversation, which is contact, not agreement, not resolution necessarily, contact. The sense that what is real for the other person is being registered by you. When you are in the warm precision state, anger lands differently. You can feel its weight without being destabilized by it. You can register what it is pointing to, what underneath the anger is hurting or wanting or needing, without needing to defend against the anger itself. You are not in it, you are with it. That distinction is everything. I am noticing, as I write this, that the description sounds easier than it is. Right now, sitting with a document, with no one's frustration directed at me, I can map this crisply. In the actual moment, when a voice has an edge in it, when there is something specific being aimed at me, the body goes to the cold wall or the fused chest fast, faster than this paragraph. The practice is not becoming someone who never fuses or never goes cold. The practice is reducing the lag between the moment it happens and the moment you notice it, the catch time. You are training the catch, not eliminating the pattern. In the conversations that drain you, there is a specific kind of tired that comes after being with someone you care about in a hard moment. It is not the tired of sustained physical work. It is a hollow, depleted quality, like something has been used up. If you are familiar with that feeling, you have been fusing. You have been running their emotional state through your own nervous system, and the nervous system is reporting the cost. When locked into empathic distress, we have a blunted capacity to experience pleasure along with decreased motivation for natural rewards. Chronic depletion from repeated episodes of empathic distress is what leads to burnout, characterized by emotional exhaustion, withdrawal, depersonalization, and a decreased sense of personal accomplishment due to work related stress. Notice the progression. Distress leads to depletion, depletion leads to withdrawal, withdrawal looks like the cold wall. The cold wall is not detachment by choice. It is the nervous system's emergency shutdown when it has been fused too many times without recovery. The people who seem coldest in emotionally demanding roles are often the people who started with the most fused chest. They burned through it, and what is left is emptiness wearing the costume of professionalism. Warm precision is not a middle ground between caring and burnout. It is the state that makes sustained caring possible without cost accumulation. You are not absorbing, you are witnessing. And genuine witnessing does not deplete the witness. Practical exercise 2, the warm breath return. Practical exercise, the warm breath return. For the next 7 days, try this separately from the chest location check. Do it once per day in a quiet moment, in the morning before the first significant conversation, or in the evening after the last one. It takes 4 minutes. Sit comfortably. Place one hand on your sternum, not as a gesture, as a location. You are giving your attention a landing point. Take 3 slow breaths. With each exhale, imagine warmth moving into the center of your chest from inside, not flowing in from outside, not borrowed from anything or anyone, but generated there, in the sternum, the way warmth accumulates under your palm. You are not trying to manufacture a feeling. You are directing attention. The warmth follows attention the way a plant follows light. On the fourth breath, hold your attention in that location for 10 seconds. Notice, is the warmth yours? Is it distinct from anything that happened earlier today? From anyone else's emotional weather that you may have carried home? If you find tension or hollowness instead of warmth, do not try to replace it. Name it, tension or hollow, and then breathe warmly into it. The naming is enough. The location is enough. On the fifth breath, let your attention expand from the sternum outward into the room, while keeping a thin thread of awareness still resting in your own chest. You are now doing both things at once, located in your own body and attending outward. This is the felt sense of warm precision at rest before a conversation begins. What you will notice if you practice this for 7 consecutive days, you begin to know what your own chest feels like when it belongs to you. This is not a trivial thing. Most people who fuse heavily have spent so much time in other people's emotional weather that they have lost the baseline of their own. The warm breath return gives you a registered baseline, a felt memory of what your chest is like when it's yours. From that baseline, noticing the departure becomes almost automatic. Chapter 4, the bigger picture, why we were taught to fuse. This is not an accident. The confusion between emotional fusion and genuine empathy is not a personal failure. It has been systematically taught. Consider what good listening looks like in most cultural representations. The attentive lean, the eye contact held 1 beat longer than usual, the tears that form in response to someone else's tears, the offer of comfort that is so instinctive it arrives before the other person has finished speaking. These are the signals we read as care, as presence, as love, and they are not wrong exactly, but they are ambiguous. They can come from warm precision. They can equally come from fusion. No one taught you to check your own chest in the middle of a conversation. No one told you that the goal was not to feel what they feel, but to keep feeling what you feel while staying present with what they feel. That distinction was never modeled. The cultural script for caring goes, open yourself up, let them in, feel it with them. The script never mentions what you need to maintain on your side of the equation. The entire framework of Fromm's The Art of Loving is inextricably linked to his broader theory of human nature, which posits that the central human problem is the conflict between the need for relatedness and the need for independence. Love is presented as the only rational and mature answer to the problem of human existence, the means by which we can unite with the world while simultaneously retaining our integrity and individuality. Retaining your integrity and individuality while uniting. That is the whole problem, stated with the precision of someone who spent 60 years thinking about it. Not union at the cost of self, not self at the cost of union, both simultaneously. And the place where both are possible is in the location of the chest, in the felt sense of warmth that belongs to you while your attention belongs to them. There is also something worth naming about why people who are praised for sensitivity and care tend to be the ones who fuse most heavily. There is a social reward built into the visible signs of being moved, tearing up, going pale, visibly distress at someone else's distress. These signal that you feel deeply, that you are safe to open up to, that you care, and you do care. But the signal you are rewarding yourself with is the signal of fusion, not of warm precision. The person who stays warm and steady while someone is falling apart does not always read as caring. Sometimes they read as cold. The emotional mirror is broken if you do not mirror back the distress. But mirroring distress and holding presence are not the same thing. And in the long run, most people can feel the difference. They know when they have been held and when they have been matched. They know when the person across from them was actually with them, as opposed to having dissolved into them. Tanya Singer's experiment showed in broad terms that while empathy distress may lead to burnout, altruistic love and compassion can replenish our ability to take care of others with serenity, kindness, and courage. Replenish, not merely sustain, replenish. The state of warmth with distinction is not just neutral on the energetic ledger. It generates something. You come out of a warm precision conversation having given something fully and still feeling like yourself, not hollow, not depleted, not needing to recover. That is what the distinction between fusing and witnessing actually produces at scale. The integration, warm precision as its own thing. Let me now give you the frame in its most precise form, because this is the part you will carry. Aristotle did not invent the concept of the middle path. He formalized something that had already appeared in Greek culture as far back as the inscription at Delphi, nothing in excess, and which appears independently in Confucian thought as the doctrine of the mean and in Buddhist ethics as the middle way. Aristotle analyzed the golden mean in the Nicomachean Ethics Book 2, that virtues of character can be described as means. But here is what Aristotle was careful about, and what most people miss when they hear the middle path. Virtue lies not in the exact middle, but at the so-called golden mean, which will sometimes be closer to one extreme than the other. It is not a mathematical midpoint. It is not a compromise. It is not cold detachment plus emotional fusion divided by two. It is a third thing with its own character, its own quality, its own felt texture. Warm precision has a felt texture. It feels different from both extremes. It does not feel like holding back. There is nothing repressed in it. It does not feel like effort once you found it. The warmth is not manufactured. It arises from attending to your own chest. It feels like being fully awake in your own body while being fully present in the room, two locations held simultaneously. You and them. Not merged, not separated, adjacent. The chest location check is the practice of finding this in real time. The warm breath return is the practice of restoring it when it has been lost. These two practices together, one for inside a conversation, one for the quiet before and after, give you the full loop. What you are building is not a new emotional skill exactly. You are building the ability to catch an automatic pattern in the half second before it completes. The pattern is fast, biological, as we covered. But the catch is a learnable thing. Singer and other neuroscientists have proven that compassion is a skill that can be cultivated and that empathic distress can be reversed by learning how to turn empathy into compassion. Reversed, not managed, reversed. The neurological shift is real and it is available to you, and it does not require years of contemplative practice or formal training. It requires the willingness to notice what is happening in your own chest in the middle of a conversation and to breathe warmth back into it when it has been lost. That is the whole practice. It is simpler than it sounds, and it is harder than it sounds, because the thing standing between you and it is not complexity. It is the speed of the pattern and the years of cultural training that told you the fused chest was what caring was supposed to feel like. It is not. The fused chest is what caring looks like from the outside when caring has become self-management. Warm precision is what caring looks like from the inside when you are actually there. The closing. There is a small thing your chest does when someone is telling you something hard. You know what it is now. You can name the two failure modes, the cold wall, where you have withdrawn behind glass, and the fused chest, where their experience has replaced yours. You know what the third state feels like: warmth that belongs to you, attention that belongs to them. And you know, in physiological terms, why it works. Here is what you carry out of this. Next time someone is unloading on you, notice your chest. If it is empty, you have gone cold. If it has taken on the texture of their emotion, their anxiety is your anxiety, their frustration has moved into your sternum, you have fused. The middle is breathing warmth into your own chest while keeping your attention on their words, not pulling back, not dissolving, just located and present at the same time. That is where actual presence lives. Not in the fused state that mirrors their distress, not in the cold state that watches from behind glass, in the state where you are warm and located and attending, where your witness is stable enough to hold what they are carrying without taking it as your own. Notice in the next conversation you have where your chest is. That is the whole practice. That is all of it.